I have been sitting here thinking about this team, and honestly, the uncertainty surrounding our roster construction has me feeling like we are riding a total roller coaster this offseason. Today, a new report surfaced regarding one of our biggest free agent acquisitions that has everyone questioning if our front office made the right gamble. It is fascinating to see the disconnect between national perception and the actual potential within our locker room. The more details come out about this specific contract, the harder it is to ignore the pressure mounting on the Cleveland Browns. Please like, subscribe, and comment your name and city below. Let's dive in. Bleacher Report just dropped a bombshell by naming our new interior offensive lineman Zion Johnson as the most overpaid player at his position before he has even played a single snap for the Cleveland Browns. We are talking about a guy signed to a 3-year deal worth $49 million, and critics are already pointing to his shaky pass protection metrics from 2025 to justify the hate. Let us be real about how we got here, because the team is in a massive rebuild mode, and adding Johnson was a calculated move to stabilize a unit that struggled mightily with injuries and inconsistency last season. He arrived here with a pedigree as a former first-round pick who started 65 of 66 games for the Chargers, offering the kind of durable availability that we desperately missed while watching our line crumble during the last campaign. The narrative surrounding this contract focuses on his high cash payout for 2026, yet the front office clearly values his youth and scheme flexibility under the guidance of coach George Warhop. It hits us hard as fans because we have seen too many expensive gambles fail in the past, and nobody wants to relive that heartbreak with our offensive trenches again. The bottom line here is that this news sparks anxiety because we are tired of seeing our signal callers pressured like a piñata every Sunday. However, Zion Johnson has said all the right things about wanting to block for stars like Quinshon Judkins, and if he can finally secure the left guard spot, all these critical listicles will look absolutely foolish by December. We need this transition to work if we want to turn our offense into the powerhouse we know it can be, so let the doubters talk while we wait to see these guys prove them wrong in the Dawg Pound. And honestly, the context surrounding the Zion Johnson acquisition reveals a front office desperate to rectify a catastrophic 2025 campaign where the offensive line became a turnstile. After the team allowed an alarming number of sacks and dealt with perpetual injury woes, the decision to pivot toward proven durability was mandatory. Johnson brings a history of playing 65 of 66 games, a level of consistency we desperately need. He signed for $49.5 million with $32.4 million guaranteed, and while critics point to his 87.4 pass block win rate as a liability, the front office is betting on his physical tools and age. Historically, we remember the disastrous signing of Jack Conklin, where huge money met declining health and shattered our playoff dreams, so the skepticism is earned. However, the internal perspective from Todd Monken and the coaching staff suggests a belief that George Warhop can fix these technical flaws through superior schematic support. They view this as a calculated risk to protect our signal caller, who simply cannot survive another year behind a collapsing wall. The front office knows that if they fail to stabilize the interior, the entire investment in our skill positions becomes moot. They are gambling that Johnson is a sleeping giant who was merely stifled by his previous environment. Think about it this way. This team spent the entire spring overhauling a veteran group that had simply grown too old and brittle to execute. We needed a fresh identity, and by bringing in Johnson to pair with our high draft picks and trade assets, the brass is trying to blend youth with professional reliability. The bottom line is that while the critics remain loud, the organization is banking on this specific unit to become the foundation of our identity, proving that chemistry and coaching can override the negative noise surrounding a hefty contract. Dawg Pound. This is where the rubber meets the road, because the interior offensive line configuration is not just a depth chart exercise, it is the primary engine room for our entire 2026 campaign. With Zion Johnson anchoring the left side next to Elgton Jenkins, we are finally moving away from the patchwork vulnerability that haunted us last year. The immediate impact is profound as we move from a liability to a position of strength, effectively clearing massive salary cap space by moving on from aging veterans while keeping our high-priced acquisition protected by a much younger, more durable rotation. And here is why that is a big deal for our upcoming schedule, especially those trench warfare battles against the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals under Zach Taylor. We cannot survive in the rugged AFC North if we are constantly leaking pressure up the middle, so having a cohesive unit that can communicate under duress is the difference between a stalled drive and a game-winning touchdown run by Quinshon Judkins. Think about it this way. When we square off against the heavy blitzing schemes we see in the division, that improved pass block win rate becomes our greatest weapon for protecting our quarterbacks. This shift fundamentally alters our standing in the playoff hunt because it turns an area of weakness into a consistent physical identity that dictates the pace of the game. We are building a brand of football that thrives in the cold weather of December, ensuring we are not just participants, but genuine contenders for the crown. If this front five can gel during these early training sessions, our path through the division is suddenly much more manageable, giving us the stability needed to secure a top seed and host meaningful postseason football right here at home for the Dawg Pound. The absolute upside of bringing Zion Johnson into the fold is rooted in his elite durability and physical dominance in the run game, which offers Todd Monken a stable cornerstone for a revamped interior line that desperately needs to keep our pocket clean. By securing a player who has started almost every game over 4 years, we are betting on his reliability to anchor a unit that was decimated by injuries during our 2025 campaign. However, the counter-argument is impossible to ignore because his pass-blocking metrics remain concerningly low, often leaving his quarterback exposed and pressured at an alarming rate during his time in Los Angeles. Skeptics point out that paying top-tier money for a guard who struggles in pass protection is a massive gamble that could backfire if he fails to develop under George Warhop. Analysts across the league are split, with some media outlets labeling this deal a potential bust based on past performance, while rival teams are watching closely to see if Cleveland can actually unlock his first-round pedigree. The part fans are not ready for is the reality that our offensive success hinges entirely on whether he cleans up his technique or continues to be a liability against elite pass rushers. And I will be straight with you, I truly believe this is a classic high-risk, high-reward move that will define whether we make the playoffs or continue to spin our wheels in mediocrity. If he reaches his ceiling, he becomes a steal, but if those pass block win rate issues persist, we are stuck with another expensive problem on a roster that simply cannot afford more missed assignments. We have endured enough rebuilds to know that availability is good, but production is the only thing that ultimately wins games for the Dawg Pound. And honestly, the big picture here shows that the Cleveland Browns are aggressively pivoting toward a younger, more durable roster identity designed for long-term sustainability rather than just short-term fixes. By bringing in guys like Zion Johnson alongside top draft picks, this front office is clearly prioritizing health and versatility to ensure that we are not perpetually stuck in a cycle of injury-driven roster chaos. Heading into this season, we should feel cautiously optimistic because this rebuild features actual receipts and a commitment to protecting our backfield, which has been a major liability for far too long. You should feel good because the coaching staff is finally addressing the trenches with legitimate talent rather than stopgap measures. Think about it this way. If our offensive line can provide consistent protection and open holes for our running game, our offense will finally become the balanced, punishing unit we have been promised. This is where it gets real, as we need this transition to stabilize our offensive identity under Todd Monken. We are essentially betting that youth and scheme fit will outweigh the transition pains that often plague revamped units, and seeing that level of intentionality in roster construction is a refreshing change of pace for this fan base. Now, I have to ask, do you believe that Zion Johnson will prove the doubters wrong and become a foundational piece for our line this year? Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below so we can discuss the outlook for the trenches. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Dawg Pound. I'll see you in the next one. Stay tuned for our exclusive breakdown of the upcoming draft prospects as we analyze every crucial move that will shape the team's future success.